Hi, my name is Mathias Sivertsen, and today I'm going to talk about teaching children in prison in Norway. Bjørgvin prison houses one of the two juvenile units in Norway and has inmates from the age of 15 to 18. I'm going to share with you some common challenges that we have when working with this group and our experiences with what works and what doesn't. So the teaching situations at the juvenile unit is similar to other schools in prison in that we have rules and limitations to deal with. We have limited to no internet access. Our students are locked into their rooms in the afternoons and evenings. And there are often interruptions and cancellations from things like lawyers, other inmates, police hearings, etc. In addition, the juvenile unit is small. It houses a maximum of 4 students. It is rarely full, and when there are several students there at once, they are rarely able to be in class together due to reasons I will get into later. So, unfortunately, this means that most of our teaching has to be done one-on-one. Some words about our students. This is a generalization, but we do notice some trends here. Many of our students have mental issues like trauma. In addition, being imprisoned at a young age can be traumatic in itself. Most of them have poor and or few experiences with school in recent years, as well as negative feelings towards school and learning disorders. Now, the students we tend to get at the juvenile unit are rarely those who find school fun to begin with. Many of them also suffer from behavioral disorders like, for example, ADHD. Having problems with drugs is not uncommon either, as well as having a criminal history. Some inmates have been repeat offenders for some time, even at an early age, as it usually takes a lot to be imprisoned as a child in Norway. Finally, many have past issues that also influence their behavior, especially towards adults, such as a long history with Child Protective Services. The main point here is that more or less all the students that we meet at the juvenile unit have had a difficult life already at a young age, but every one of them are still very different. Here are some typical challenges that we see at the unit. First of all, adapting to a new situation is difficult. As I said, being imprisoned at a young age can be traumatic in itself. There are new people to relate to, new expectations placed upon you, demands all the time. We would all be forgiven if we, being placed in the same circumstances as a teenager, withdrew into our rooms. Sleep is probably the biggest challenge at the juvenile unit, at least for me as a teacher. Most of our students have trouble falling asleep and waking up. Many of them, or sometimes they are prescribed sleeping pills, so that they're often tired in class or late for school because of sleep. A typical workday for me often consists of getting the student out of bed in a state fit for schoolwork, or at least trying, and ensuring they're in a good mood when they finally come to class. They can sometimes even sleep through the day because they feel they have nothing to do before dinner anyway. We see some peer pressure that can be challenging in situations where there are multiple students at the juvenile unit at the same time. If one student has a disfavorable attitude towards school, that may also influence the other inmates. And finally, gang culture. I'm not sure if it's the right word for it, but what I'm trying to get at is attitudes to life in general. So sometimes students don't believe they need school, for example. They're sort of indoctrinated into a way of thinking, a criminal way of thinking, where they might see education as unnecessary because they can sell drugs instead for a living. Some more challenges that I see at the unit. First of all, something I call authority fatigue, which I see even in those children who haven't even been in prison long. Basically, you are told what to do a lot as a child in prison. There's a lot of things you have to do all the time. And if you remember what it's like being a teenager, it's not fun being told what to do. So I feel like they get tired of being told what to do. That makes it difficult as a teacher to come in on top of that and say, well, you need to do this and this schoolwork. In addition, they also have an insecure future, both in the short term and long term. In Norway, the maximum suspended sentence or custody for children under 18 is 2 weeks, and most of our students are not there on a proper sentence, but on suspended sentences. So they tend to be there for 2 weeks at a time, which have to be renewed due to or with meetings with police and lawyers and all that stuff. This means that our students are sometimes told by lawyers they will be out next week, and then that's not the case. But at any rate, we often have to plan for 2 weeks at a time. Sometimes students can suddenly be released without us knowing, which is of course good in a way for them, but not for their education sometimes. So they don't really know where they are next week, right? Are they in prison, out of prison? Where are they going to be? Can they be transferred? There's a lot of insecurity. The same goes for the long term. By the time they arrive at the juvenile unit, many of the students have already dropped out of school. They have no chance of finishing the school year with a passing grade. So how do you get someone like that back on track? It's difficult, especially with motivation, when it feels like the schoolwork you are presented with at the juvenile unit doesn't count. So, those being the challenges, on to what we consider to be some good practices, some good ways of working. First of all, we try to have individually tailored plans. So we try to talk with the students and arrange with them each school week if we are able to. This gives them some degree of autonomy because the students get to participate in planning their week along with a counselor. In addition, sort of a motivational theory term, self-determination, we believe that students who agreed to a schedule beforehand or decide to have classes are more likely to follow through. We try not to push way too hard to begin with because we find that many of the students are liable to end up refusing school if we push them too hard. In the long term, we have a superb school counselor who works hard to find our students a path in life. This can be something like a new school, a clear goal to work towards, a way to get a certification that the students need. This helps motivation, right? If they don't believe there's any purpose to them attending school at all, they're less likely to do it. But if we give them a clear goal that they can likely achieve with help, even if it's only passing one class like mathematics, it makes it worth something and hopefully makes school feel less meaningless. Another term that I like to use is pulling rather than pushing. We try to make the students want to come to us. I mentioned authority fatigue earlier. It's difficult to tell students you have to go to class now and expect them to do well in that classroom situation. Also, we find that they don't often respond well to strict teacher tones. So we try to be a contrast to prison staff who are constantly demanding and sort of giving orders in a way. We try to make the classroom a positive and nice place to come to. It's better to make them want to come to the classroom for one lesson than forcing them into 5 bad ones. Then, in the classroom, I am myself a fan of boosting self-efficacy. So if you're not very well versed in motivational theory, the very simplified explanation is that self-efficacy is the belief that someone has in their ability to accomplish a task or achieve a goal. So, for example, if you're given a task in my class, Norwegian or English, to write a text, if you perceive this task as being too difficult and you have low self-efficacy, if you have a low belief in your ability to do what it takes, you may just give up. If you have high self-efficacy, you will try and maybe succeed. So we try to give our students challenges that they can overcome, or that we can overcome together. The goal is to build the belief that they can achieve things, along with strategies for success, of course. These children also often need good school experiences, which they often lack. In fact, many of the students that we get at the juvenile unit need to learn to go to school. This isn't something they master. Things like concentrating, sitting, reading, just the basics. So our hope is that succeeding at even the smallest things at school can hopefully lead to more success with schoolwork in the future. Then quickly adapting, I said before about the complex needs and challenges that our students have. They're all different, right? So many of them are restless and have trouble concentrating. So I like to bring as many plans as possible. Okay, moving on. Some good practices outside the classroom. I think one of the most important things when working with children in prison is to build good relations. Many of them have, as I said, past experiences with school that are very negative. They have distrust of adults. So spending time actually building good, positive relations really helps, especially when you're going to be one-on-one with a young student long-term. To me, praising students for good behavior sounds obvious, but it's something I like to talk about. My hypothesis is that many of the children that we meet at the juvenile unit have received less praise in their lives than the children who are not in prison. So I think having a good relation helps, and giving good relevant praise to them, you can really see the effect that it has on some of the students. And finally, good cooperation with the prison staff I find is vital to succeeding. We talk together before and after class. How is the student doing? Have they had a bad night? Are they okay? The end goal for both of us is helping the children, right? So they help get them out of bed. Just that cooperation really helps us both a lot, I believe. So finally, thank you for listening to a brief overview of the juvenile unit, and I will let one of our students end the talk by talking about his experience of it. Thank you very much.
How important would you say that education is for your future? Education is crucial for my future because I need education to get the job I want. Does having a clear plan for your future make it easier to go to school? Absolutely. It does, because if you know why you're doing it for, then you are more likely to be more motivated because it's something you want to achieve through this. Yeah. Which things make going to school here easier? More help from the teachers. Which things make going to school here more difficult? Being the only student in class. How important is it to get enough sleep in order to be ready for school? It's quite important. I can't speak for everyone, but if I don't get enough sleep, then I'll be really angry and not wanting to be in class. Yeah. What are the main differences between going to school at the juvenile unit and the normal school outside here in prison? Yeah. What do you want and need from your teachers here in order to have a good day at school? That the teachers respect me. That goes both ways. That they don't bring their troubles from home to school, and yeah. What could improve the school at the juvenile unit in your opinion? I don't think it does need any improvements. It's quite good as it is. Yeah.